Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
After the Grenfell Tower fires 7 weeks ago, initial tests found that similar cladding on more than 80 high-rise buildings was unsafe. Now a different combination of the same cladding and different insulation has also been tested and found to be unsafe as well. And that combination can be found on the outside of 111 more buildings, which is pretty alarming for a great many people, to say the least.
These tower blocks in Camden, North London, are tonight among more than 100 buildings on the latest list to have failed government fire tests. And for already worried high-rise residents, this is yet more anxiety.
I no longer light any candles, I don't allow smoking near me. I just bought an electric cooker, I no longer have gas. So apart from taking personal safety measures, I really don't see, apart from prayer, I don't really see what else I can do.
I'm sure it's been a nightmare for everyone involved. And I'm just praying and hoping that they'll continue to make not just the necessary or minimum improvements, but improvements beyond the minimum.
111 buildings have the combination of materials that's failed this fire test. 90 are known to be residential, run by councils or housing associations. Each has been advised to obtain an urgent fire safety audit. To really make clear the significance of these new government findings, this lab has agreed to do some tests for us. Both of these building materials are used on tower blocks, but in a fire, each behaves very differently. This material is exactly the insulation type used at Grenfell Tower. It quickly and ferociously ignites. But this is the insulation material used by government in its latest test. Known as mineral wool, it's non-combustible. Critics of tonight's official findings say including this in a fire test fail is misleading and confusing.
They are alternatives, but one of them is what we would call fire safe, and the other one allows fire to spread from one compartment or one flat all the way up the side of the building to every other compartment and flat, and that's the tragedy of Grenfell.
Our experiment ran to completion, but we've been told the new official fire test was ended around 7 minutes into a planned 30-minute exercise. In that time, the outer cladding caught fire, but not that insulation. Last week, a similar experiment was also ended early. This all adds to claims that the government tests are a waste of time and money. This disaster cries out for answers, yet some of the first to emerge from official investigations seem only to have brought confusion, not the clarity so many are calling for. Chris Choi, News at 10.
There's more news breaking tonight on the tests into building, cladding and insulation in the wake of the fire at Grenfell. Chris Cook's been following this whole issue since the day of the fire. Chris, we've had a lot of tests. Just briefly bring us up to speed on where all these fit together.
So it's important to remember that we heard a lot for a couple of weeks about test failures all over the place. What the government was actually doing when they had all these failures was they were auditing the building stock. They were trying to work out what combustible materials were on buildings across England. And the problem was, though, they didn't know which combinations of materials can be used together safely, because a lot of it will be okay because it will have been installed in a way that means that it's sort of fire broken and fire can't get to it. So they've done 6 tests, or they're doing 6 tests, I should say, to work out what combinations of materials can safely be used
together. So these
together.
are the big 6. You can basically
forget everything else.
Forget all other tests. These are the 6.
Exactly. These will tell us which buildings are safe.
And what are these tests showing?
So we have a grid that will help sort of explain what these tests are. So down the left-hand side, those are types of cladding that they're testing. So they're going to test what they call limited combustibility cladding. That's basically the most fireproof stuff. Then fire retardant cladding, which is slightly less fireproof. Then finally, polyethylene core cladding. That is aluminium around a plastic core, like it was used at Grenfell, which is quite combustible. They're going to do these big tests with them installed alongside plastic foam for one test and mineral wool.
This is the insulation.
Exactly. Yeah. So they'll get different combinations. So we've had one last week, which was the Grenfell combination, polyethylene core cladding with plastic foam. That was a complete failure. What we've learned tonight is there was been another test, polyethylene core cladding and mineral wool, which is a sort of non-combustible insulation.
So even though the insulation was non-combustible, this cladding basically just...
Exactly. So what that tells you is that polyethylene core cladding is gone.
Absolutely.
So all of there are 193 buildings across England, tall buildings across England that have some kind of polyethylene core cladding on them. They will have to be taken down realistically, because even when you have the safest type of insulation, it can't withstand the fire test.
We've got 4 other boxes to look forward to.
Exactly. We don't know what they're going to say. And what they might reveal is all you need to do is change a little bit and then make those buildings safe.
Chris, thank you very much indeed.
I've been